Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to Emergence of Being. I'm Hank and Dr. K over there, and we're here to talk to you all about complaining is draining. Stay with us. Welcome. It has been a few weeks since we've been live streaming, but we're very excited to put together a whole series. So today is part one of a
Mhm.
five-part series of energy drink.
Energy
So we're gonna
drains. Yep.
complaining is draining today. We're gonna have energy loops, energy vampires, unseen entities, food and movement. We're covering everything. But today, something on everybody's mind because of the state of the world is complaining, and that's where we're gonna start.
Complaining is we all complain. So I had this challenge that I did for one of my little webinars on I want you to try 24 hours of not complaining. I did this for myself. I had no idea how much I complained. And I mean I'm not a complainer, but it was like silly little things like, oh man, like they're out of apples, they're out of bananas. I can't believe it. Like, how is that since so it's like and I caught myself each time and I was like, wow, those added up in the course of a day.
And that's the thing. Like, how many people think they don't complain,
What'd you
and
do?
but they really do? Like, how many times like you might say something, well, you're always complaining, and people might be defensive, saying, I don't complain. But at the end of the day, like you might be in a state of disillusionment. So, like, really ask the question, like, where am I not an allowance of my current situation? Because complaining could also just be an internal monologue, but it adds potency when you're sharing that internal monologue with somebody else. Because now, like, misery loves company and like people complain together and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, so it's like something really to be mindful of.
Yeah, and you don't have to complain to somebody. You can be walking around your kitchen complaining to yourself. Yeah, so that those are places we don't even, I think, catch ourselves. Like, oh man, can't believe I dropped the butter on the floor. Now it's ruined. It's like that kind of stuff. Silly stuff, really. You
It kind of sounds to me, when you say it that way, it sounds to me like it's about self-judgment when you're complaining, or judgment about anything. It's like what I just said, like not allowance of the situation, and then like not I don't have the words that I want to use, but like just getting stuck in fragmenting yourself because something's not working out, because now you're living in the past because it's not the way you would like it to be, or you're thinking about the future, about like what you would like it to be because this sucks or whatever, and like you just kind of lose yourself in that moment then. And how long do you stay there in that perpetuating state? But like you said, you catch yourself, and then what did you do to shift out of the complaining when you caught that you were complaining?
awareness, and you can, I just cut the cords to that and I replace it with like, I just switch my mind immediately. Like, oh, there was a complaint, so I'm going to be more aware of all the complaints. They start in the head and then we say something and then it comes out. What I didn't have the realization of is how much I was doing it to like just walk around the kitchen or driving or in the office, or oh man, this pen doesn't work. These are really crappy pens. I'm not buying these anymore. It's just really like, you think complaining, you think of a person that's just like Debbie Downer, like saying all this stuff. It's down to these tiny little minutia things that we do on a daily basis. It's like, then you turn it around to positive, like, well, but this pen has really served me for a long time. And okay, I'll make a better judgment next time. I'll buy a different kind of pen next time. But the
Yeah.
more you complain, you will attract more situations and more pens that don't work.
Oh,
So
that sounds like energy flows where your attention goes, something we talk about all the time. But what came to mind as you were saying that, there was one of the founders of Access, Gary Douglas. He was talking about how there was all these delays of what project they were doing, like building this resort, I think in Costa Rica or wherever it is. And people kept stealing their plants. And like there was a whole bunch of people all agitated, or a contractor like took them for like $1 million or some crazy amount. And they're like, aren't you upset? Aren't you upset? He's like, no, look at all the awareness we have now to choose differently. And that's a great example of, instead of going to a place of negativity when something doesn't work, or you bought those pens, they didn't work, like, wow, I'm so grateful for this awareness. I know not to buy these pens again. And you can take that complaining thing and switch it into a gratitude thing with just a few little tweaks.
yeah, it's really not that hard. We think it's hard, but it's really not. It's You have the ability to change a thought pattern. You have the control. It's actually not as difficult as you think. So if you have a refrigerator that's constantly breaking down and you're constantly like, oh man, here now the ice maker's not working. Now the light's not working. The more you complain at that device, the more it will break down. So you
Mhm.
can take a little sticky, put it on the fridge or whatever device it is and say, I love you. You're amazing. You're doing that. Really. It's an intent,
Yeah,
it's a
I
change of
love
an
you so
energy.
much. I'm going to put money into fixing you. And then, like, instead of like, oh my gosh, what's going to break next? Like, look at the energy difference between those two things. And we just have Valerie just checking in. She's saying
All right.
hi and good morning. Good morning, Valerie. It's good to have you with us. I see quite a few people watching. Feel free to make comments, say hi, ask questions about what our topic is. But with the complaining part, it's really like energy flows where the attention goes. And like Dr. K was saying, when your refrigerator breaks, like what if you go, oh my gosh, what's next? You're already inviting the next quote unquote
Yes.
negative thing
Yes. How often do we do
versus
that? How often do we do that?
a
That's a great
lot
point. A lot. Yeah.
too
It's
much.
what's next? What's going to go next?
Yeah, I remember there was, I forget what it was. I think it was during COVID, and there was like the COVID and then the murder hornets. And like one of my friends on Facebook said, oh, well, here's the other shoe. I wonder I wonder when the next shoe is going to drop or something like that. And so, like, when something negative happens, it's almost we're always starting to set ourselves up for like, wow, this is bad. I wonder how we can top this in terms of what's bad. What if we start doing that with what's good? I'm so grateful to have this money in order to pay this bill. Well, then maybe the universe gives you more money instead of more bills, instead of, oh my gosh, I have another bill to pay. But just look at the mindset difference between like receiving that same experience, that same data point of life, and treating it in an entirely different way to start shaping and shifting the reality that you would prefer to have, which is a
That
lot
is
more
so
money.
key. So key. So you will definitely invite more of those situations to you when you say things like, "Oh yeah, when's the shoe?" Often things are in a good stretch, and then we're like, "When's the next shoe going to drop? What's going to happen next?" So we're already anticipating that, and you will bring that into your existence, and it does happen. It so happens because I've been there and I've done that too. So really changing your mindset and saying, "Oh, thank you that just love your machine, whatever it is that's breaking. I'm grateful that I can fix this," and really avoid getting caught up in that energy of what's going to break next, what's going to happen next, where is the shoe going to drop next, what's going to malfunction next, who's going to call me next and create a problem.
Mhm.
So cut the cords, disconnect, and switch it into a positive energy.
Yeah, and this is just on the note of abundance too. Like if something happens and there's an unexpected bill, instead of thinking, "Oh wow, am I going to have enough money?" They invite the universe. Like, what would it take to receive more so that I can pay this with ease? So like even like the initial thing, then like whatever else is impacted by that, like your finances or your time or your patience or whatever it is, putting something else there for not only do you have the outflow of energy for whatever has come up, but you're also in the state of allowing the universe to give you a little bit more or a lot more to cover that. And Valerie was just sharing, I get caught up in complaining for sure. I need to get back to your amazing question. What else is possible? I need to hear this. Thank you. What else is possible is a great question. And also, what could I choose here that would create a different possibility? All those things get the brain thinking, and then you'll be surprised at how easily inspiration can come. But the hardest part, I think Dr. K, you alluded to it at the beginning, is you have to catch yourself.
Yes.
And Pram talks about that all the time. The first step into changing your life is to simply notice. When you notice you're not doing what you would like to do, just the fact that you're noticing it is already starting to change the behavior because you're in awareness instead of unawareness. And then you can start shaping and shifting into a whole different pattern.
Yeah, and a lot of people are just not awareness is like the key to it all. So for the next 24 hours, catch yourself on the little complaints. Try to catch yourself on every little thing, like you drop something, you spill something, you're starting to complain about it, your car won't start, little things. You'll start noticing how often you actually complain.
Now, and when you do that, don't start complaining about how much you're complaining. Like
Complaining.
instead,
Yeah.
be like, "Wow, I'm so grateful I have the awareness of this now that I can start to choose differently." And so, like that's the other important thing is like anytime you go into self judgment, when you do slip up or you're doing something that you're looking to change, like not to make that a wrongness. It's just like, "Wow, I caught myself. Now I'm choosing differently." And what tips do you have? And I'm sure I'll think of something too after I ask it, but for people to start getting into the practice of noticing, because it's one thing for you to say, go for 24 hours and notice these things. But if people aren't used to that, what do you do to kind of catch yourself or to start that process of showing up and catching yourself?
I think it will be very easy to catch yourself, honestly. because now that we've put that little seed in your head,
Mhm.
you will start noticing more on your little complaints and you'll catch yourself. And it's almost like a stop, like when there's a fire, like a stop, drop, and roll. So stop for a second, like, oh, caught myself, drop into a different energy and roll with that energy. So
Ooh, I love
it's
that.
negating it with something different. So stop, you gain, oh crap, I just complained. Okay, let me see, what can I say that's different? Or like if it's your fridge that's breaking, okay, I think I'm going to put a little sticker on there, a little sticky on there saying, I love your fridge, thank you for holding all of my wonderful groceries. And you're going to have that sticky on there, and you're going to see that every single day, so that you're dropping into a different energy, and you're going to start rolling with that energy. Like every day you're going to look at that, and you're going to now send your fridge different energy. So if somebody's got a example of something they like to complain about, toss it up there, we can switch it, we can do the stop, drop, and roll on it, and figuring out a different energy on that. I don't know if somebody wants to volunteer something.
Yeah, if anybody has a question, we have quite a few people watching. You don't have to be quiet. You can absolutely share. And if you're watching this on the replay, this is a 5-part series. So for those of you who missed that, there's going to be 5 total streams that we're going to do all about this type of energy thing. So I'll just put that up again. We have complaining is draining, energy loops, energy vampires, one on entities, food and movement. We're going to be covering all of that. So if you think of something and it's on a replay, catch us live, ask that question. We can always circle back or make a comment, and make sure you tag either myself or Dr. K so we see it, because we're streaming to like 8 different places and sometimes we miss things, but we try not to. Valerie did give us one. She just said, I used to wiggle the toes of my left foot when I noticed. I love the stop, drop, and roll. I'm not sure if I used to wiggle the toes of my left foot when I noticed. I'm not sure.
Maybe she means whenever she complained about something. Is that what you
Oh,
mean, Valerie? Like when you complain, you
is that
wiggle
like a
your
tell?
toes, or
Yeah.
or that is that happening inadvertently?
Yeah,
Like
but
a
I love the stop, drop, and roll. I got to make a meme for that. It will maybe that will be a little blog post or something like that.
So you're
But the thing,
stopping, you're catching yourself, you're
yep,
dropping
stop,
into a
catch
different
yourself.
energy.
And if you find yourself not able to do that, then what you want to do is like pick at the top of every hour to just top it and with a notebook, be like, okay, did I complain in this last hour? So if you find yourself not catching yourself, then pick a couple times a day, maybe every hour and a half, like whatever is feasible depending on your work day or whatnot, and just jot down, where did I complain, and then write down, what could I have done differently
Differently.
instead of going where I went. And you're going to end up, like Dr. K said, it's going to end up coming naturally. But if you're like me, it took me a long time to get that ball rolling when I started my mind shift with my, for those of you who don't know, I've been sober like 18 years, I think, give or take a year. And my mantra the first year of sobriety was self pity and gratitude cannot coexist. And I was trying to catch myself every time I went to a negative place with a gratitude statement. And at first, sometimes my sponsor had to like say, hey, you got to reframe that, what you just said. And it was a process, but now it's like super easy for me. So if you're like me, you could also just stop and write it down, or if you're around somebody a lot, do it together and be each other's accountability partners. So you give yourself permission to call each other out, and then that way you can help each other catch those things and reframe it. It's
Yeah,
always fun to
accountability
be
is
the,
great.
yeah.
Or maybe at the end, if this is too much, maybe at the end of the day, like put a little notebook next to your bed, and before you go to bed, have your little light on and look at your day, and how was your day? What Look at the events that happened. I like to do a little exercise looking at all the good things that happened that day. And they could be really small, like, hey, I got to work on time finally for once. Uh, my day went smooth. Didn't have any hiccups. Uh,
Mhm.
I got a longer lunch hour than I usually get. There's some extra time. Hey, the sun was out. List all the good things that happened that day. But if you want to reflect on your day and look at the places where you complained so you can catch yourself that way, I like to catch yourself right in the moment, because that's the way to, I think, make this change much quicker.
Mhm.
And now that you have this little tidbit of complaining, I think people will catch themselves more, because I really didn't until I put the challenge out there. I'm like, I'm going to do this myself and just see. I was like,
It's a
whoa,
great challenge.
I didn't even realize that I was doing it. So you start to look for your complaints almost. So then it's easier to switch them around, because then you can pattern interrupt right away versus waiting at the end of the day. But if it's easier for you to kind of reflect on your day, or you want to do both, reflect on your day and how did you act that day? I mean,
Yeah.
like, what, how did your day go? And how did you react to situations that maybe didn't quite go with the flow?
Yeah. And two things. One, what would it take for you to be able to look at everything in your day from some sort of position of gratitude? Challenge yourself to that. So take the worst thing, quote unquote worst thing, whatever you least preferred about your day. I think that's the lightest way to say it. And how could you look at that as an opportunity? Just like Gary Douglas lost $1 million in something, and instead of going to a place of negativity, wow, look at all the awareness we have to choose differently. So challenge yourself to even the negative things. What could you put as a positive spin? And I love that you brought up pattern interrupts. It's probably from other modalities, but in NLP, neuro linguistic program, you do that pattern interrupt to stop you from going to the places you normally go, and then you're re-anchoring new behavior. And if you do that enough, especially in a condensed short time frame, you're really setting yourself up for like much better habits that are going to be a contribution to what you're looking to create, instead of like kind of deviating you from the you know you could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the easiest way to do it, because then you can create a new habit faster, because this is a matter of changing an old habit and creating a new one. And that does take a little bit of time. It's not an overnight process.
Mhm.
So, but it will happen a whole lot faster if you can kind of just roll with the punches and get it quicker.
Roll punches. We got to do a whole separate video just with the stop, drop, and roll, because I really like that. And then we have Valerie. She was just offering. So I find myself not being grateful for all the things I have, and being super focused on other people's opinion of me, and just focused on the positive things in my life, if that makes sense. And that's a really good point. Like, how much complaining do we do about how other people perceive us? Like, so and so looks at me this way, and they're just so wrong about me. Or like, we can get caught up and other people's opinions that aren't even ours, because we're empowering them. So that's a whole nother area of complaining to really be mindful of, to not empower other people's opinions of you.
Yeah, I think it was Wayne Dyer that said, "What other people think of you is none of your business." But that never like really jived. I'm like, okay, okay, it didn't sink in. However,
Yeah.
what other people think, it's their programming, and they're getting triggered by something that you're you're doing, that's triggering them in their own program. So it really doesn't have anything to do with you. It's whatever is inside them that they don't like, that they see you doing, and it's triggering them inside. So you have to become immune to that and just really cut the cords. It's got nothing to do with you, but why are you getting triggered with it? Why? You
And on
know,
the flip side, where are you complaining about other people? So and so did this and it's so wrong. My boss is a jerk. They didn't give me the day off. And there's like all these things where we start projecting that too. And what all that is there's a raw data of a situation. Like if your boss says no for a day off, what if 8 other people already requested that day off and they simply couldn't do it? So instead of going, the raw data is they said no, but then we say my boss is a jerk, my boss is unfair, all these lenses of how we're receiving them that have nothing to do with the actual experience. It's all us putting things on there that aren't there, and
yeah,
tainting
I'd
it even
say
further.
90% of the time there is something you don't know about the situation. This has happened to me like a zillion times. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is. And then somewhere down the road, a week later, I have the truth, and like, yeah, this person they snapped because they just found out that they were served divorce papers or something. I'm like, oh well, that makes sense. So there's usually always something behind the situation that we're not aware of, yet we just get into this zone of like, oh, this person hates me. And when that person might just be really going through a tough time, and they're not seeing clearly. And so anything that comes their way is being they're attacking everything, anything and anybody, when it really has nothing to do with you. It has to do with what's going on in their life. So that's just a silly example, but
And how many times have we had that happen where you have, well, because like last year, I had a lot of stuff going on and I was probably very short with a lot of people because I was just, my threshold of like craziness was just like at the peak, and it was really easy for me to get off centered. And so like when you have like your little reservoir of stress or whatnot, and if you don't have mitigation things, and I was going to Dr. K, like even healers, like when we got shit going down, I was going to Dr. K, Dr. K, I need you. And I come in
oh my
and I'm
gosh.
like crying in her office as she's working on me. And like,
Well, I do that too. I come to Hank. I'm
right,
like,
right. So it's like, what if you really are in a place where you're not able to get to that center and you are in this constant complaining, then sometimes life coaching or a healing session or something, like just having another person's point of view to help you with that reframing can go a long way.
Yeah, like the saying goes, when you're in the bottle, you can't see the label. When you're in your own hurricane, you can't see the reasons perhaps for why things are happening. Uh, Somebody else from the outside that isn't triggered is going to
Mhm.
have an unbiased opinion and is going to be able to see through. And that's something I like to do. I'm good at. I see where the problem is health wise for people, why they're not getting better, because usually it's a stress thing. So I'm able to see that, but they're not able to see it. It doesn't even come across their mind because you're in the hurricane and you can't see. You can't see clearly. It's perception. It is all about perception.
Right.
So yeah,
And there's also too, like your higher self or your Christed over self, it has the golden picture view, but we oftentimes don't listen to ourselves. So like the two questions to really ask is, what do I really know about this? What do I really feel about this? And those types of things come as these inspirations with, there's no words to it. It's just like a knowing, you know, that you know, that you know. As soon as you have a dialogue going on in your head, that's you head tripping yourself out of your knowing. So like, just go back. No, I'm not head tripping here. What do I really know about this? And sometimes it's just a lightness that you know it's all going to work out and you don't really know how, but you can trust that you know that it's all going to be okay. And even that can give you a little bit of solace. But when the chips are down, if you need something, reach out to someone that you trust or to a healer or to someone that has a couple tools in their tool belt.
yeah, that's a whole other level of teaching. I think is when you get to the point that your mind is quiet, you'll be able to hear those things and differentiate them a whole lot better. And
Mm-hmm.
even then, we get caught up in our own stuff. And so that's really tricky. We all get caught up in our own stuff. And you really have to go to different levels of awareness and healing until you can get to that point where you can give self therapy and just really,
and And even
you
then,
know,
sometimes you get blindsided by something. Is if your
totally.
life is smooth going on ease, you know what your soul's probably doing? It's going like this. It's like boring. I came here to experience stuff, yo. We got to go out there and create some chaos. So like, but so even if your life is going all smooth going on ease, like be willing. Like, well, what else could I be out experiencing and be the causality of the change in your life instead of at the effect of it, because your soul is working whether you are consciously aware what's happening or not. And if you can co-create your soul path with your life path, that's when life really is magic and it's really smooth going at ease. But there's still all the things happening. It's just you have a grace moving through it that you wouldn't have if you're, you know, resisting that flow.
Totally. And there's so many different pieces. This is a whole other
Yeah, we got a
higher
whole sub
level,
talk.
a higher level talk. The key really is to get your mind quiet enough. You are always connected to your higher self. Your higher self is always talking to you. Source is always, angels are, you're always being guided, always. However, we're so noisy in the head. We have so much drama, trauma, all kinds of stuff going on, kids and work and, plans ahead. And we're always living in the past or in the future that we don't hear. It's coming down, but it comes in, it gets blocked because we're not in the headspace to hear those things. So the key really to work on is to get really quiet in the head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you guys go to the Emergence of Being YouTube channel, if you just search for meditation, I know we've done at least a couple streams on meditation and getting into the silence. I can go look for it and post it in the comments. But if you're looking to have a little bit more on getting centered, there's a ton of videos that we've done that like touch on it and some that are specifically dedicated to it. And Valerie was just offering that, yeah, she needs to get back to meditating
Yeah,
daily. It really
totally.
is such a huge practice, and all of life ends up becoming a meditation once you have the foundation laid. You can keep that meditative state often, and even when you get knocked off center, you can get back to center so much more quickly if you take the time to really establish a good practice.
Yeah, Valerie, I say that took me a while, but I decided I would say put things on the schedule, because if you don't put it on the schedule, you won't do it. So
Yep.
make a schedule every day. Like I
You're
started,
speaking right to me because I'm really bad about scheduling.
you have to just get, like I started every night. I'm like way back before I had all these tools, but I started with some other mentors. And so every night I would say, okay, they're like, do some meditation, focus on your breath. I'm like, okay. So every night before I went to bed, I'd go in my little computer room, I'd turn off the lights, I'd turn on a little dim light, and I would just sit there and close my eyes and just focus on my breath in and out. That's it. I didn't think on any, I
Mhm.
would just focus on the breath in and out, no specific breathing, just regular breathing. I did that every single day. I don't know. I started with 10 minutes, probably up to 20 minutes. every single night before I went to bed. And I made sure I got that in. And it becomes a habit. And once you start creating that habit, like initially it's going to be like, I don't have time. Just force yourself for the first 2 weeks to just,
Mhm.
and then you'll start to see that you roll into the pattern. And now, if I don't do it, I crave it. It's like, I'm off. I'm off because I've
Yeah,
gotten off my routine.
you end up
So
missing it.
what's that?
You end up missing it, like when
Oh
you
yeah,
don't,
yeah.
when you
You
establish
miss
the
it.
routine. Like I know Eyes, but she's been working out every single morning since like almost every single morning since like at last August. So she's been very consistent. And when she misses a day, like she can, like her body is like, whoa, what's up? Like what we're supposed to be? No, come on, let's go back to this. Like it becomes part of what your body is appreciating that you're doing. And just get the habit started. I'm actually starting myself, Dr. K. Like I'm going to be doing yoga every morning. My body's been asking for it for a long time. And it's like, well, if I really want to practice what I preach and listen to my body, I got to still get with the exercise program,
Yeah.
even like yoga a couple days and running a couple days. Maybe I'll end up going to the gym with Dr. K and getting all buffed out. Right?
We're waiting for that.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll be waiting for that for a little bit longer, but I'm going to do the other stuff first.
But really, it's like anything else. There's going to be resistance at first. It's like, I don't have time. I'm not going to do that. Oh, I'll just skip today. It's like anything in life. Like things happen and I
Ooh.
think they're uncomfortable. Like this is a stupid example, but I got rid of my microwave and I'm thinking, how am I going to cook this is, it's a minute. I'm going to get this little toaster oven, but how is that going to work? It's going to take me 14 minutes. And initially it was this like resist, like, but then starts to become a habit. You start sticking your food in there, 10 minutes. I go do some dishes and you start to get adjusted. The body will get adjusted to whatever you give it. But initially there's so much I think the trickiest part is to start the process. Starting the process, there can be a lot of resistance
Hmm.
to it, especially if that's what you need. So I'm finding there's a lot of resistance when what you need is what you really need, you will resist tooth and nail. You will try to talk yourself out of it more than anything. So just do it. Know that that's something that you need to do.
Yeah.
And then,
You're
just start doing
describing
it.
me.
Oh,
Describing me to the
thanks
T
for
with this. How long have I been talking about my body wanting this, and I still haven't done it? But like, this is like, this is the time, But like,
well,
really,
the ego resists.
and it's like I give the example of like a rowboat. Like when you first start rowing, it's a lot harder to get that boat going, right? But like
Yeah.
once you have some momentum and you continue doing it, like you keep up that motion, it becomes a lot easier for that movement than when you first begin. So like with anything, like once you start the momentum, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, it totally does. I you get adjusted to anything. I moved recently. It's like, I don't like this place, but the body starts getting adjusted. It's like, okay, well, this is the way it is for right now. And you start getting adjusted to the situation, the circumstance, whatever it is. So, like anything else, with the meditations, just start, put it on the schedule
Mhm.
every night before you go to bed. Start with 5 minutes, build up to 10, build up to 20. Just start, and you will start getting used to it. I promise it will happen.
Yeah. And do you have anything going on? Because we're about just coming up on the 30-minute mark. So
Yeah.
we just want to see if you guys have any last minute questions, let us know. Again, this is going to be a series. We got these other ones coming up about energy loops, energy vampires, unseen entities, food and movement. Who knows? Based on our conversation today, maybe we're going to have like a deep dive, like part two into some of the more esoteric things. Or maybe we have a class, Dr. K. That would be a thing we could offer too, like a class on some of the things that we talk about. But do you have anything coming up that you want to let everyone know about?
It will probably be May. I'm going to rerun my stress class. I think we just didn't get to quite enough people, but just talking about how your stress energy affects your health. It is behind every single one of my clients. We come in for functional medicine. Can you run some tests? Well, those tests are going to reflect what you are dealing with. So we got to deal with what you're dealing with before you can start healing anything. So that will be probably coming up in late May. I'll be rerunning that. But
Awesome.
other than that, I don't have a ton.
Yeah. And I have on May the 4th be with you. I'm teaching an online class called Congruent Manifestation, where I'm going to talk about what you need to do to align your soul path and your life path, which we kind of talked a little bit about today. But you can find out about that on my Facebook page. I don't have it on my website yet, but the Sonic Shaman Facebook page under events, you can find it there, or you can message me and I will get you the registration link. It's $30 and it includes recording of the class so you can watch it. You don't have to be live on the call, but to get the recording, you do have to be pre-registered. It's not going to be made available as an ever webinar afterwards. So if that feels light to you or interesting, please check that out. And as always, you can look at our websites below. I always think I can like reach my hand into Dr. K's to point
Well,
like below her. You can see our websites
our
right below our faces here. So you can check us out if you want to book private sessions. I know Dr. K has a really cool initial assessment where you get her biofeedback machine. I have a discovery call if you want to like talk with me first to see if what I do is right for you. We both are available if you should feel that you'd like a little bit more one-on-one work to help get you through these things or shift your life.
Absolutely. So have a great Monday, everybody.
All right. Yep.
Great
Have a
to
good
see
one. We'll see you
sunshine.
next time. Bye.
Bye.